In this video, we are going to be looking at law of variable proportion. When we talked about law of variable proportion, simply we are looking at the resultant effect of adding extra units of variable inputs in the course of production. That is, when we add more variable input, what is going to happen to our total product, what is going to happen to our marginal product, what is going to happen to our average product. That is just what our law of variable proportion is trying to tell us. And again, we must also understand that before we go into law of variable proportion, we should understand the assumptions. Those are the conditions that must be met before we can have law of variable proportion. Number one is that there must be a fixed factor, a fixed input, that is fixed factor of the production. It means that at least, I said at least, one of the inputs used for production must be fixed, which can be land or otherwise. So we must have at least one fixed input, that is, we must have at least one fixed asset before we can have law of variable proportion. That is number one. Now, by this first assumption, we can quickly conclude that that kind of period is going to be short-term period, because short-term period economically means that is a period where at least there is one fixed asset in the business. So if the first assumption says that we must have at least one fixed asset, it means that the period must be short term. So it means that we can only have law of variable proportion in the short term period. We don't have law of variable proportion in long term period, because long term period is a period whereby all our inputs are variables. But in short term period, we have all inputs not to be variables. Rather, one of the inputs must be fixed. So assumption number two is that the situation must be short term, must be in short term period. Then assumption number three is that the factors inputs, particularly the variables, must be homogeneous. That is, the capacity of the variables must be the same. For instance, if we are using it, maybe we are working on the farm and we have laborers, that's homogeneous. Factor inputs means that we must ensure that the capacity of these laborers are the same. No laborer can work better than other. That is what it's talking about. So the homogeneous, the homogeneous factor units, must be ensured. Now, when we understand these particular assumptions, then we now come into what is law of variable proportion. Let's quickly look at the definition that has been defined by one of our scholars here. He says that law of proportion is as the proportion of the factor in a combination of factor increased after a point. That is, the combination of factor increased here after a point. First, what is going to happen? That is, when we have more variable inputs, initially what's going to happen? The marginal product and then average product will increase. Then at the point, the marginal product will fall, average product will fall, will diminish. That is what it's talking about. You will understand this, I'm saying quickly. You understand it now. Let me expatiate now. Look at the diagram here. Look at this table here. We are on a particular farm now. We have units of land here. We are using 5 acres, which is our fixed factor. You see, there's no change. Fixed factor. Then we have our units of labor. These are our variable inputs. And these are variable inputs, they are homogeneous, as we have mentioned in the assumption that they must be homogeneous factor units. So they don't work better than each other. They have the same capacity. Now, having ensured that, now at the initial stage, now, if we look at the initial stage, we have 3 stages here. First stage, second stage, and third stage. Now, the initial stage, when we are not producing, unit of labor is nothing now. Nothing is going to happen on the farm. The total product is going to be nothing, average product is going to be nothing, the marginal product is going to be nothing. But when we employ one labor, see, we have our 5 acres of land. We employ one laborer. Then this one laborer we employ here is able to produce 2 units of the product. Maybe cassava, with 2 tubers of cassava. Now, having produced this now, the average product is 2. The marginal product, naturally, marginal product will be nothing. because you can only have marginal products if you have previous production. And when you look at it here, there is no previous production. That is, you see some textbooks, they tend to put, marginal product to be 2 here as the initial production, start output, which is not correct, because you can only have the word marginal when there is an event before it. There is no preceding event, so we could not have marginal. It should be dashed here. Now, when we employ more laborer, 1, making 2 laborers we have now, we have 1 to this making 2, now we are able to produce 5. Then when you look at what has happened to our additional products now, we are producing 3 tubers. We are producing additional 3 tubers. So the additional 3 tubers plus the 2 we had at the initial point, we have 5 tubers here. We have 5 tubers here. So the total product is 5 now. Marginal product is 3, and our average product is 2.25. When you divide 5 divided by 2, you give me 2.25. You can see what is happening now. Now, when you come to, we employ 3rd laborer, then we are able to produce 9. Total product is increasing. Then our average product is now increasing to 3. The marginal product is also increasing to 4. You see, this is what we call increasing at increasing rate. The first stage is called increasing at increasing rate. Or, increasing at increasing rate, meaning that increasing, the first increasing I mentioned talks about marginal products. Marginal product is increasing at increasing rate, but what is happening? The total product is also increasing from this downward to this point. To this point. We have increasing at increasing rate. Now, this is the end of our first stage. Because immediately you leave this stage now, you come to the second stage. And the second stage, your AP equals MP. And at this point now, we'll be having increasing at decreasing rates. Now, if you look at it now, you can see that our MP now, as we employ more labor at the first stage now, what happened to our marginal product is increasing. It's now decreasing. That is the beginning of the second stage. Decreasing at increasing rates. Decreasing, the first decreasing I mentioned now is also referring to marginal product. And increasing rate is referring to total product. Decreasing at increasing rate. The marginal product is decreasing while the total product is increasing. The same thing happens here. Marginal product, when we engage one more person, making 5 persons working on the farm, we have decreasing our marginal product, but our total product is increasing. Then why what is happening here? Our average product is also decreasing. Now, then we come down again. We employ one more person making 6, still using 5 acres. Then we have here what happened here. Marginal products decreasing again, but our total product is also increasing. Then this also decreasing. Then the last stage of our second stage here, our marginal product is 0 when we employ the 7th person. It means that when we employ the 7th person, no value. That is, there is no value. Because marginal product shows the value, added. The value added. Although the value added here at the beginning of second stage is decreasing, but it's adding something. That is why our total product is increasing. But when you get to the end of the second stage, no more value added. So when there is no value added, then that is the end of the second stage. For a wise firm, you must stop production at this point. When you employ more person and that's the person or the additional inputs is not having any value. So you have to stop production at the end of the second stage. At the end of the second stage. That is increase. That is the end of decreasing at increasing rate. Now immediately you leave that point. If you still want to buy more variable inputs, then at this point now you have 8 persons here. That when you have this the 8 persons here, then what is going to happen is decreasing at decreasing rate. It means that they were not having value, and the already made value is now depreciating. It means that the laborers are not even able to work like before. Then instead of them maintaining their 15 units, they are now producing 14. They are reducing. The total product is now reducing. So when the total product starts reducing, then what is happening here? The profit is now being affected. It's now being affected. Because this is not ideal. So this is the second stage. Now let's quickly now look at this now. Now, law of proportion has 3 facets. It has 3 phases, 3 stages. But law of diminishing returns has only 1 stage. The law of diminishing return comes in at the point where the marginal product decreases. So the point at which marginal product decreases, that is the point where law of diminishing returns sets in. Law of diminishing returns sets in when marginal product decreases, not when marginal product is increasing. So it means that law of variable proportion is enclosed in law of diminishing return is enclosed in law of variable proportion. That is a distinct difference between law of variable proportion and law of diminishing return. Law of variable proportion has in it law of diminishing return. That is the second stage. So when you hear about law of diminishing return, quickly think about the marginal. It could be marginal utility, it could be marginal product, it could be marginal anything. So law of variable proportion, law of diminishing return sets in at the very point where marginal units or marginal products or marginal utility starts. Thank you. Subscribe and get more of our video.